Thanks for clicking on this video. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon and turn on all notifications to keep up to date with the latest information and discussions. Baby, it's cold outside, and I don't want to let him in. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now when it comes to discussions on the MasakoX channel, we tend to keep things relatively tame, so that means we don't go too doolally when it comes to our own theorizing for Haverock and I. However, recently, Haverock came to me with a very creative idea, and together we were able to come up with something rather compelling, which I think could shed some light in terms of a certain nefarious galactic emperor's origins. It's something we're really excited to share with you, so let's not beat about the bush any longer. Today, we're going to be talking about the origins of Frieza and King Cold and what they might be. But in order to understand this, we need to take a look at Frieza's daddy, King Cold. Ah yes, King Cold, the rather imposing character that was taken away from us drastically short thanks to a traveling boy from the future deciding to use his sword. So despite his brief appearance in the series and in the Broly movie, his actual impact on the story was rather mighty. With King Cold around, it implied that there was more than one of Frieza, that Frieza wasn't just some random alien or something like that. It meant that there might be more of them. It left us with so many questions, and not just about the character himself. For such an important character in terms of the Dragon Ball lore after the Namek saga, we really don't know much about him. What really didn't help his cause, in fact, was the fact that he wasn't able to show his abilities for very long at all, because, you know, future Trunks, swordy. Yeah, that does restrict what you can do being, you know, gone. All we could glean was the fact that Frieza and King Cold, in terms of their base power before Frieza became a mech, was that they were really comparable in terms of strength. However, the differences between them was how they exhibited it. Frieza eventually wanted to go full power, showing exactly what he could do against Goku, whereas King Cold hasn't really chosen to do that, although we suspect that he could actually transform into a final form or even a fifth form like Cooler. King Cold instead chose to remain in his second form, and for reasons which are actually quite obvious given the name King. We haven't got confirmation from Toriyama, but quite obviously, King Cold looks like a king. And I would treat him like a king if my king was over 10 feet tall. But I still think that despite the minimal information that we got, there are still plenty of things that we can infer between the relationship of King Cold and Frieza and where they came from. And I think they actually fit pretty well with ideas concerning the not Arcosians. Thank you very much, Pioneer Dub. That just really threw a spanner in the works for a while, didn't it? Being honest here, we really don't know much about their background, other than the fact that King Cold was the leader of the Frieza army / empire prior to his son, and that he turned the reins over to his son at some point in the past. With the introduction of the Broly movie trailers, we can actually glean a little bit more information, thankfully. We kind of get the idea with the way that King Cold announces the arrival of Lord Frieza as a real passing of the torch. The way that King Cold carries himself and speaks is so much more different to what Frieza is. It really makes the contrast all the more apparent and make them two different characters instead of just being copies of each other. We can infer that the relationship that King Cold had with King Vegeta was rather cordial. King with king. They both got what they were. You know, kings can, relate and have some kind of cordial and respectful relationship, working together and actually getting the most out of each other's race. However, Frieza's arrival made things rather different. Frieza didn't see himself as a king. This emperor, the Galactic Emperor, saw himself as a tyrannical ruler, a totalitarian. Everyone had to do what he said, he treated everyone the same, hot garbo. We didn't get any talks about filthy monkeys from King Cold or anything like that. Nope, all of that came from his son. With the fact that whatever race they are, they have kings, where do they come from and where are the rest of them? Do they have a thriving population that we've not yet seen? Or are there just a few of them left, like mavericks, like old Freezy Pop here? Well, you see, Frieza could easily be described, and has been described by official documents, as a mutated life form. Strictly speaking, Frieza's father is a mutant with a grander power level than anyone else of his race. Which is why he's a king, because he stands above the rest in terms of power and stature. And yeah, that's not just in terms of height, but just the way he carries himself. He acts like a ruler. Toriyama backs this suggestion up in 2014's Psycho Jump. Born from his father alone, still in strong possession of the mutant traits, was Frieza. Accordingly, even saying Frieza's race, these two are the only ones who possess an abnormal level of battle power and cruelty. So as you can see, even amongst their own species, Frieza and King Cold are a special case, and this is probably the reason why their family, or their, strain, is the ruler of their particular race, and thusly, the galaxy. And this actually kind of explains a lot. Maybe the whole transformation thing is something unique to Frieza and his father. And it also makes sense when you look at the games, because if you play as a Frieza race character, you cannot transform from 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The only thing that you can do is Golden, and that's only given to you if you actually train for 4 months like Frieza did. Frieza could, in theory, go Golden in his first form, but the final form is much more effective, and Frieza does love his final form, doesn't he? We also know that King Cold was very much aware of Beerus and Majin Buu from the outset, and that he was very keen to warn his son about the dangers that they might cause if he wasn't too careful. Yes, King Cold and Frieza may in theory be the strongest people in their universes, sure, but these creatures are mythical creatures that they cannot comprehend. It's not even worth getting into an argy-bargy-barney with them. Now this speaks volumes for the character, because up until that point, King Cold would describe himself and Frieza as superior to all. But at the same time, if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense that someone so nefarious and powerful in the galaxy would actually get to know the God of Destruction. It does stand to reason that the two of them would actually end up meeting and having a bit of a conflict because they have similar interests. Only the God of Destruction is a lot more powerful. So that whole point makes sense about King Cold knowing about Beerus, but Majin Buu? That whole thing? That's a lot weirder. After all, the sealed ball that Majin Buu is contained in has been, well, sealed for about 5 million years up until the point we reach in Dragon Ball Story Age 737. Why does King Cold talk about Majin Buu as if he's just about to appear tomorrow? It's really hard to think about someone like King Cold being afraid of this legend, because King Cold is a really arrogant person. Why would he be so worried about something that in theory doesn't exist? Unless we decide to think laterally about something that makes this notion not so crazy. Perhaps King Cold is so old that he experienced the likes of Majin Buu firsthand. But at the same time, this seems a little bit less likely, because it could have easily been that Beerus kicked King Cold's butt and then told him, saying, "Ah yes, you might be wanting to be careful there, Kingy boy. There is Majin Buu out there, and he could easily whoop your butt like I can." Is it possible for King Cold to be that old? Well, based on how powerful the rest of the really essentially immortal beings are, Shin and the like, it seems very unlikely. Really, I think in reality, it seems much more likely that King Cold found out about Majin Buu from some other kind of Kai-like creature or being. He would have found out instead of having lived through it, but it's fun to speculate in a way. How about this is something that is passed down from father to son, so King Cold found out about Majin Buu from his father, and then from his father before him, and so on. But Masako, we know nothing about King Cold's father! We don't know much about King Cold's race in general! This is supposed to be a discussion, not a what if, Masako! No more what ifs! No more speculation! This isn't a Tuesday! Ah! Yes, you are right, but let's look at the evidence that we do have. We know that this information was passed down from King Cold to Frieza, so wouldn't it make sense that King Cold would have got that information from his father or someone else like a father figure? But I think there is some kind of information that means we can be a little bit more bold in terms of our discussion. Something that sounds a lot more crazy is about the whole idea of how Frieza came to be in the very first place. What was the incident that led to Frieza being born? In the short segment from Toriyama's interview, we can easily infer that there was no mother figure involved, and that King Cold is still rather powerful in terms of the mutant traits that he possessed. As Frieza reached maturity, King Cold passed the reins of rulership to his son. And this isn't down to the fact that King Cold was getting old or anything like that, he just felt the time was right for Frieza to take the reins. But we also sadly don't know the name of Frieza's race. We've just been given the name Frieza race or Frieza clan, or even just Changeling, for years and years and years. The dub tried to add some clarity with the likes of the Arcosians before Frieza wasn't even a thing back in the early days of the Saiyan saga, but this is just a dubism and something not to take seriously at all. The term Arcosian is a relic of the early days of 90s dubs, so let's just consider it that way. But what if we're wrong about that? What if we actually do know the name and it's been under our very noses for years? What if, much like Vegeta's name, Frieza's name is something given to someone? It's a heritage name, something that is bestowed upon the alpha predator of a particular clan. what if the founder of this lineage was the original Frieza, and the Frieza that we know is just one of many? There are a lot of questions to be had here. But if the Frieza name is just a singular affix, just something bestowed upon a particular person, rather than just a namesake, this actually answers a lot of questions and gives us a little bit more information as to why the Saiyan race and the Frieza race came together in the first place. It kind of makes that whole idea, and the reason why King Cold got in touch with the Saiyans was because the two of them, they weren't that different. That common interest would be the thing that drew King Cold to King Vegeta in the very first place. Okay, that's all very well and good, Masako, but we need to get to the meat and two veg of this discussion. How do they reproduce? Do they spit eggs out like Namekians do? Are they born in chambers? Do they just do the horizontal fling like everyone else? What? Well, I think things might be a little bit more clinical for that, and for that we need to go to the likes of Star Wars and Jango Fett. That's right, Star Wars, and if you think that's crazy, it's not. Toriyama references Western sci-fi movies all the time, with the likes of Alien and The Terminator being common ones, Trunks being John Connor, and it's very reasonable that Star Wars played a very big influence in the development of the Frieza race. We believe that the Frieza race reproduces by cloning. Of course, there is some genetic engineering involved in the process, so there are some kind of variations, but the base figure that we have presently is basically Frieza. Frieza didn't grow up to be a galactic tyrant. He was designed to be the ultimate galactic tyrant. He might just be the latest version of an original clone. Maybe King Cold was the previous clone, and therefore it's like some kind of tradition for the current clone to then create a newer clone with much more great improvements to then keep up the legacy of the race, which means they don't go extinct. Frieza, whoever the clone would be designed to be the best ruler ever. And best being subjective here. Okay, this then throws up a question of why King Cold referred to himself as King Cold. If he thought himself as superior, then why didn't he just give himself the name Frieza? That is if assuming the whole name thing we're talking about was true. But this also throws up the idea that maybe there were failed attempts in terms of clones. Maybe Cooler is a failed attempt to create the ultimate alpha predator, and he wasn't worthy of having the Frieza name. So maybe that's why he exists. He's a failed experiment. So, wow, okay. This then means the Frieza race, the ones we get in games, are just other failed clones and copies. Ones that can't transform. This could open up a whole new idea about where their race comes from. That is if they decide to actually, work upon these ideas, instead of leaving them in the fridge of development. Get it? Fridge? Yeah, the fact they're called Frieza, Cold, the stuff, yeah. Anyway, as fun as speculating may be, we really don't know the hard facts because Toei and Toriyama don't really find it that particularly interesting to go into it at this time. And I think it's unlikely that that will change. We did get a smattering of new information in the upcoming Broly movie from the trailers and all of that, but I think that's pretty much what we're gonna get. Maybe they can at least settle on how exactly tall King Cold is, because he does vary from the original Z, and even though King Cold's place in the story was essentially just to show how powerful future Trunks was, it's only fair that we get to see his origins and how he came about Frieza in the first place. Maybe we can have it in a flashback. Dragon Ball doesn't have that many mysterious characters anymore, so I think we really should just follow the party line and make a mysterious character less mysterious, like we did with Android 17 in Super. It'd be really cool to get an idea of King Cold outside of just interviews from Toriyama, which is quite stale. And with a little bit of inferring and evaluating like an historical document, we can glean some information and suppose some ideas based on behavior. And Toriyama, if you're listening, you're welcome. Just put a smattering that in the Dragon Ball Super Cooler movie, okay? So what do you guys think? Do you like our theories that we supposed? Do you even care about King Cold at all? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!